New developments today in federal court involving the co-defendant in the case tied to former Charleston County Magistrate Judge James Gosnell Jr.
John Badger Thorpe changed his plea today, now pleading guilty to federal child exploitation charges involving conspiracy and distribution of child sex abuse material.
Live 5's Elijah Brown was inside of the courtroom for us as the evidence was laid out. He's joining us now live downtown Charleston. So Elijah, take us inside of today's hearing.
Raphael, in a pretty heavy day in federal court today as John Badger Thorpe walked in handcuffs, like you mentioned, before pleading guilty to receiving and distributing child sexual abuse material across state lines. Now, cameras weren't allowed in the courtroom, but during the hearing, Thorpe's behavior shifted noticeably, at times appearing to laugh as the judge questioned his attorneys about their preparation, even joking that he wished they could exonerate him. But that tone changed quickly when federal prosecutors began outlining what they described as extensive evidence against him and co-defendant James Benjamin Gosnell. And a warning for viewers, some of what was discussed in court was extremely disturbing. Prosecutors say Thorpe's exchanged thousands of messages with Gosnell discussing child sexual abuse material and violent sexual fantasies. They also reference allegations involving planned meetups and the sharing of illegal material between the two men.
Thorpe has been communicating with State Magistrate Skip Gosnell, former State Magistrate Skip Gosnell, about sexual interest in torture, rape of incredibly young and frequently infant and toddlers, and murders, as y'all heard. In the summer of 2024, Gosnell agreed to come to Florida, bring Thorpe a flash drive with videos of small children being tortured and raped for them to watch together.
Officials say there's no indication at the time that any of the alleged victims referenced in court were from South Carolina. Thorpe was also asked during the hearing whether he had ever received mental health treatment. He responded to the judge saying no. Thorpe, like you guys mentioned, now faces 60 years in federal prison. Sentencing is expected to come in the coming months alongside additional testimony from potential victims. Reporting in downtown Charleston, Elijah Brown, Live 5 News.